The Myrtles Plantation, Chloe's Ghost, and the Tragic Slave Legends of Louisiana. General David Bradford constructed the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, in 1796. It is a famous antebellum estate with a rich history and a reputation as one of the most haunted houses in America. Over the ages, the plantation, which was originally known as Laurel Grove, has seen both tragedy and mystery. Several family members have died of yellow fever, and there are many ghost stories connected to the plantation's former occupants and the enslaved people who once worked the land. Both tourists and paranormal enthusiasts frequent it because of its haunting folklore and paranormal activities. The following are 7 important details regarding Chloe's ghost, the Myrtles Plantation, and Louisiana's sad slave legends. Number 7. Chloe's legend and identity in expansive detail. The story of Chloe at the Myrtles Plantation is a multifaceted fabric composed of folklore, oral tradition, and the persistent interest in the eerie past of the antebellum South. The most often reported versions claim that Chloe was a slave who lived on the farm in the early 1800s and was owned by Judge Clark Woodruff and his wife Sarah. According to some versions, Chloe was coerced by Clark Woodruff into being his lover. This is a tragic but common reality for many enslaved women, and it fueled competition and envy among house slaves. After being replaced by another woman, or after being discovered listening in on the Woodruff's private conversations, sometimes referred to as listening at keyholes or behind doors to learn about family business, or her own fate, Chloe is said to have grown anxious about her position in the home. The element that has become the most identifiable aspect of ghost sightings and legends about Chloe is that either Clark or Sarah Woodruff purportedly chopped off one of her ears as retribution for this perceived betrayal, forcing her to disguise the wound with a green turban. The reality of a slave named Chloe or Chloe, as well as any documentation of such an incident taking place in the Woodruff home, are not supported by historical evidence or plantation documents, despite the story's emotional impact and vividness. Number 6. The poisoned cake incident. Motives, methods, and aftermath. The notorious poisoned cake is at the center of Chloe's tale. Chloe apparently came up with a dangerous scheme because she was afraid of being transferred to the hard fields or because she wanted to recover her preferred position in the family. In order to covertly add an extract of boiled and reduced oleander leaves, a plant notorious for its strong toxicity, to a cake she made for one of the Woodruff daughters' birthdays. There are differing interpretations of Chloe's motivation for this act. Some claim she intended to make the family ill in order to heal them and demonstrate her indispensable status, while others speculate it was an act of retaliation against the Woodruffs, especially if she had been rejected or replaced as Clark's mistress. Sadly, the scheme failed. The tradition goes that Sarah Woodruff and her 2 daughters, Octavia and Cornelia, ate the cake and perished from the poison. Sarah was pregnant at the moment, according to some versions, which heightens the tragedy and sense of loss in the narrative. The tragic conclusion of the legend is clearly contradicted by historical documents, which indicate that Octavia lived into maturity and that Sarah, Cornelia, and her son James perished from yellow fever rather than poisoning. Number 5. Chloe's death. According to the belief, the poisoning's aftermath is just as terrifying as the actual act. Following the discovery of the deaths, the other slaves on the plantation were terrified and feared that Judge Woodruff would punish them all at once. They reportedly took matters into their own hands in a last-ditch effort to save themselves. Chloe was taken from her bed when she was asleep, hanged from a big oak tree on the property, and her body was then tossed into the Mississippi River while being weighed down with rocks. According to the narrative, this deed was either a form of retaliation against Chloe or a means for the enslaved community to prove their innocence and escape the Woodruff's wrath. A supernatural element is added in some versions, which imply that Chloe's body was weighted down to keep her spirit from rising and haunting the living. While blurring the boundaries between historical reality and fantasy, the story's portrayal of collective fear, ritual, and sacrifice captures the tremendous pressures and perils faced by enslaved people. Number 4. Historical inaccuracies in the fabrication of folklore. Despite the story's persistent hold on popular culture, a careful review of historical documents finds notable inconsistencies. The Woodruffs possessed slaves, according to the U.S. federal census, 5 in 1820 and 32 in 1830, although none of them were named Chloe or Chloe. In addition, Sarah Woodruff and her children did not die from poisoning, as the legend suggests, but rather from yellow fever, which was a prevalent and fatal illness in Louisiana at the time. The story's authenticity is further called into question by the fact that Mary Octavia, one of the daughters purportedly slain by the cake, lived well into adulthood. Historians and researchers have determined that the Chloe narrative began in the middle of the 20th century, especially after Marjorie Munson, the plantation's subsequent owner, started hearing tales of a spectral woman wearing a green turban. These tales were then adorned and combined with other regional folklore to become the now famous Chloe story. The development of the story shows how popular media, tourism, and the human need for dramatic, supernatural explanations of tragedy can all influence folklore. Number 3, haunting phenomena and Chloe's ghostly legacy. The Myrtles Plantation's eerie reputation revolves around the Chloe legend, regardless of its historical veracity. Particularly in the dining room where the poisoning is said to have taken place, visitors and paranormal investigators often report seeing a female apparition in a green turban, sometimes manifesting as a shadowy figure or blue mist. Unaccounted for footsteps, doors that open and close by themselves, cold areas, and children's play sounds are among the other recorded occurrences, which many people believe are caused by Chloe's and the Woodruff kids' restless spirits. The plantation's reputation as one of America's most haunted places has been further cemented by its appearance in multiple television shows, such as Unsolved Mysteries and Ghost Hunters. Particularly at locations connected to Chloe's story, some visitors report experiencing uneasiness, melancholy, or feeling watched, while others assert that the spectral inhabitants made them feel welcome. In American paranormal lore, Chloe's ghost is among the most photographed and spoken about due to the frequent tales of ghostly activity, whether real or imagined. Number 2, the broader context of slavery, trauma, and Southern Gothic. The horrific historical background of slavery in the American South is inextricably linked to the Chloe tale. Like everywhere else, enslaved individuals at the Myrtles Plantation suffered from unspeakable adversity, including forced labor, physical abuse, sexual exploitation, and the continual fear of family separation. Whether true or not, Chloe's story strikes a chord as a metaphor for the anguish, hopelessness, and lack of autonomy experienced by enslaved women. The themes of the story, betrayal, punishment, and supernatural retaliation, reflect the traumas and anxieties ingrained in the history of the plantation. The legend functions as a type of Southern Gothic narrative in this way, processing and conveying the profound scars of injustice and slavery through the use of the paranormal. Thus, Chloe's ghost haunting of the Myrtles Plantation serves as a metaphor for the unresolved grief and historical reckoning that still influence the American South. Number 1, origins, evolution, and enduring appeal of the Chloe legend.